Okay, we're on page 492, gentlemen. So last time we spoke about on 492, 3 lines from the bottom. Vayitena Moshe kechalosa ledaber ito behar Sinai shnei luchos ha'edus. Hashem gives them the 2 luchos of testimony. Luchos even ksuvim be'etzva Elokim. 2 luchos written with Hashem's, literally the finger of God. That's what the literal meaning is. Obviously, God doesn't have fingers. So one of the questions that the Meforshim deal with is, why are the luchos in stone? Why were the luchos? Why was the 10 Commandments, which according to some of the Meforshim, that the entire Torah was contained and alluded to or actually written in between the letters, different opinions. But why is it in the stone? What is the idea of stone? So obviously the first idea of why the Torah is given in stone is that what?
It's like unchangeable.
Unchangeable. It's carved in stone. And the Torah is not something we could tamper with. The fact that there's that there's a Torah Shebal Peh, and we may come up with ideas, but that's all contained in Torah. But we're not going to change Torah. As a matter of fact, there's a medrash that says, this is remarkable, that the luchos could be rolled up. You know, like you take a Sefer Torah and there's some pretty weird stuff about it. Remember, the luchos is coming from Hashem. You got certain the mem and samach in the luchos. You know, a samach is a circle. Now this circle goes all the way through the stone. Well, there's a middle piece of the circle. It's like the piece of the donut that wasn't taken out. Well, how did that stay in the air? If it's hollowed out completely around it, so how did that piece of samperinon, which is the stone that the luchos are made out of, samperinon, which in English probably maybe sapphire, I don't know, but it's in Hebrew, it's called samperinon stone. How did that piece stay up in the air? You understand, it's hollowed out. So that was a miracle. So the fact that it could be rolled up is also, the Medrash says that the luchos could be rolled up like a Torah scroll. Well, what does that seem to indicate? What does that indicate? It could be rolled up.
It's magic.
Magic. Yeah, you hear magic. Yeah. What does that seem to indicate? I think it indicates that, yes, the Torah is carved in stone. It is unchanging, but that doesn't mean there isn't flexibility. That means flexibility in halacha. Sometimes a question in halacha, there are different ways you view the question based on who's asking the question and what the circumstances are. It doesn't mean we're changing the halacha. So, for example, in the laws of kashrus, let's say some milk spilled into a pot of meat. A posek will look at it differently if it's a considerable loss of money, and he looks at it differently than he does if it's an insignificant loss of money. And that's built into the halacha. That means there's a certain flexibility in Torah. It's not all black and white. There are these gray areas, but it doesn't mean it could be changed. Number 2 is that the Torah can penetrate a heart of stone. The idea of the luchos being carved is, even if a person has a heart of stone, symbolically, most people's heart isn't made out of stone, but symbolically, who's the classic example of that? Who? Oh, well, didn't penetrate his heart. He didn't penetrate his heart. He had a heart of stone. He was obstinate. Who's the classic example of taking this lesson to heart? Lavan? Bilam? Yes. Boy, you guys are picking the bad guys today. The bad guys are the guys that didn't do it. You know.
Yisro?
No, Yisro certainly came around. Good. But who is the classic example of this specific point? Okay, so how did Rabbi Akiva start out? Remember the famous story with Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva was a ignorant shepherd. And one day he went off and he saw a stone, and the stone was being dripped on. Drip, 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 and he saw the stone had been eroded, and it was. Have you ever seen like these stones that are worn down? So Rabbi Akiva took a look at it and he said, if water which is soft could penetrate a stone which is hard, so Torah which is a fire could certainly penetrate my heart of flesh. And Rabbi Akiva was inspired by that, and he went off and he studied Torah, became the great Rabbi Akiva. And he left home for 12 years. Then he came home and left for another 12 years. So he was away from home for 24 years. He was away from home for 24 years. The 24-year Ohr Somayach summer program, is stretched for 24 years. But he understood that Torah could penetrate. Now, a very fascinating point. When water drips on the stone, I've wondered about this, being the philosopher that I am, because I've wondered about this when I see rounded stairs. If you ever take a look at these old buildings, like you go up to Tzfas, and you see these old worn-out rounded stairs, usually in Tzfas you see them, or in these old shuls. So they weren't built with rounded stairs. They started out as, yet they got rounded. I've always wondered, which step was it that rounded the stair? Because I walked over it a few times and I didn't see any change. So Rabbi Akiva is watching this, this stone is hollowed out for the water, the drip, drip of the water. Now let me ask you, gentlemen, which drop did it? All of them. That means that every single drop must be knocking out some micro particle. And Rabbi Akiva, what does he realize from that? He realizes that the first drop must have done something, because if the first drop did nothing at all, then the second drop would become the first drop, and that would do nothing at all either. So Rabbi Akiva realizes if there's an accumulation and it's rounded out, that's got to mean that every single drop had an effect. So Rabbi Akiva says that means every word of Torah has an effect. Rabbi Akiva says that every single Torah is having an effect on me. And that's what Rabbi Akiva understands, and that's why he becomes a great Rabbi Akiva. And that's what we have to understand, that every single word of Torah is having an effect. We may not feel it the same way that the stone doesn't feel the effect of the drop, but there's a micro. There's something happening to our neshama with every single word. And then, when you look back after a few months, you see there's a cumulative effect. It turns out and says, hey, how did I get so fast? How did I come so far? How did I get to the point where I'm throwing stones at cars on shop? How did I achieve this? How did I get here? And the answer is that it's having some effect. Number 4 is that, what did we talk about? Yes, the Gemara says, then you're going to wonder why in the Gemara shir I'm always making you review it, and I keep telling about review it. The Gemara says that the way that a person masters Torah, if he turns his cheek, become tireless like stone. That means he never tires of reviewing Torah. Keep going over it and over it and over it and over it. And therefore, the luchos are made of stone. It's a reminder of our cheeks that we're supposed to be running Torah all the time. And the last point is, turn back to the book of Bereshis for a second. Anywhere in the book of Bereshis, it doesn't matter. Just find any page randomly in the book of Bereshis. Now look all the way on top. Look all the way on top where it says Sefer Bereshis in the right-hand corner. Look at the word Bereshis for a second. Look at the 2 middle letters. Aish. Look at the 2 outside letters. Beis Reish. And look at the 2 last letters. Yud, Tuf. The first 2 letters and the last 2 letters. Beis Reish, Yud, Tuf spell what? Bris, which is a covenant. And what is Aish? The Torah is a covenant of fire. The Torah is a covenant of fire. The luchos become the body. The Torah is where the divine fire, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Torah existed before it was given, in a black fire on a white fire. You've heard that concept. Now it's going to be put into the physical world. Well, where is it going to be contained in the physical world? Where is fire in the physical world? When you take 2 stones and you bang them together, that produces fire. So the luchos represent the potential banging together to create fire. That's the fire of the Torah that's put into the luchos. Okay. Now, let's go to the golden calf. Vayara ki voshesh Moshe loredes min ha'ar. The people see that Moshe delayed coming down from the mountain. Vayikohel ha'am al Aaron. They gather on Aaron. Vayomer Elov. Kum. Get up. Asay lanu Elohim asher yelchu lefanenu. Make a God to go before us, to lead us. Ki ze Moshe ha'ish asher helanu me'eretz Mitzrayim lo yadanu mehayalo. We don't know what happened to Moshe Rabbeinu. Let's put this in a proper perspective, gentlemen. The first thing is, like we said, it can't possibly be that the sin of the golden calf was that the people said, this calf is our God. A golden calf which they saw produced on the spot, and then they say, this is the God that took us out of Egypt. Whatever else they meant, they didn't mean that, because they weren't idiots. And it can't possibly be that that's what it means. So what does it mean? The answer is, Moshe Rabbeinu, up until this point, if you put it in proper perspective, when he said something was going to happen, it happened. There's going to be the death of the firstborn at midnight. When did it happen? At midnight. There's going to be the plague at a certain time. The sea is going to split right now. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'll be back on a certain day at a certain time. And then the people make a miscalculation. Moshe's late. Whoa, Moshe's late? The man who's always on the dot is late? And if he is late, there's one of two things that's happened. He went up to a mountain. He's been gone for 40 days. No provisions. He took nothing with him up that mountain. There's nothing up there. We're stuck in a desert over here. And the people are panic-stricken. Where is Moshe Rabbeinu? We're all alone. We could cut them a little slack and understand that they're in a frame of mind of, hey, what's happening here? What's going on over here? We've been abandoned by Moshe Rabbeinu. We need something. So they go to Aaron, and they say to Aaron, we need, obviously it's not a God. We need some sort of, Moshe Rabbeinu was the mediator, not the meat eater, the mediary. Intermediary, thank you. The intermediary that we relied on to contact God. We need a different intermediary. Hold all the questions for a few minutes. We need an intermediary to get to God. And the mistake is that idol worship was always making use of an intermediary. But that's what the Torah prohibits. The Torah says, don't make images to serve me. We need some sort of image as an intermediary, which isn't going to die like Moshe Rabbeinu. When Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to the mountain, he's gone. What are we going to do now? We can't have that. And therefore they say, make us a God that will lead us. Because we don't know what happened to Moshe Rabbeinu. So what does Aaron do? The first thing is stall tactics. He sees the people are in a frenzy, and he's in a situation over here where we're going to have to get them gone. Let's see if I can stall them till Moshe Rabbeinu comes back. Vayomer aleim Aaron, porku nizme hazov asher be'oznei neshechem b'nechem u'vadechem. Take off the golden trinkets or earrings from your wives, your children, and your daughters. V'aviu elai. Notice what he resorts to. Go to the women. Go get their jewelry. Go get the jewelry from the women. Now it's not just the idea that the women want to hang on to their jewelry. There's such a much, because Aaron understands who the women are. The women are much more, have a much deeper level of faith. And the women are the ones who did not worship the golden calf. So you got to come to the wife and say, let me have your golden earrings. Why? Oh, we just need them for something. What do you need my earrings for? We got something going on over here. What? Well, Aaron is gonna make an image. Well, an image. Can you imagine? They sense that it's the wrong thing. The Torah says they did it anyway. Vayisporku kol hames nizvei hazov asher ba'ozneim vayiviu. They bring that to Aaron. Vayikach miyodam. He takes it from their hands. Vayotzar osa bacheret. He forms it in a. How does the article translate a cheret? In a cloth. The word, he bound it in a cloth somehow. I don't remember exactly what the technique was, but the word cheret is related to the Hebrew word charata. Charata means regret. That means the Mefarshim say that even as he was doing it, he regretted that he's got to resort to this. Vayaseu egel masecha, and he makes it into an image of a calf. Vayomru Eila Elohecha Yisrael Shaluchem Eretz Yisrael. This is your God of Israel who brought you out of Egypt. How could they possibly think that? The answer is that they understand, and they were under the impression that Moshe Rabbeinu had an effect on God, that he had an influence on God, and he brought us out of Egypt. He's no longer here, so we want the substitute of the man that brought us out of Egypt. Not that literally they think that this golden calf, because you have to be an imbecile to think that. So Aaron he's got a problem here, because now they got this golden calf. Look what Aaron sees. Vayar Aaron, vayiven mizbeach lefanav. Aaron sees and he builds an altar. The word vayiven that he built is related to the word to understand. Bina, vayiven. And the word mizbeach can be read as mizavuach, from the one that was slaughtered. This is the source that tells us Hur, his nephew, was killed. And Aaron took a look and he said, uh-oh, they killed him. And if they killed him and I object, they're going to kill me. Now, Aaron was not afraid to give up his life. Jews at much lower levels than Aaron through history have given up their lives to not worship idols. But Aaron understood that if the Jewish people kill me, then they're doomed. Then there's no hope. At least if we do this, then there's hope for the Jewish people to repent. If they kill me, they're at the point of no return. And therefore, Vayikra Aaron Vayomar Chag LaHashem Mochar. Tomorrow we'll make a celebration. Tomorrow we'll get, again, a stall tactic. Now watch this. This is an absolutely remarkable insight. Vayashkimu mimocharos, the people get up the next morning. First of all, what does Vayashkem Avram Baboker, what does Vayashkem mean? They arose early. What does that always tell you? Yeah. Well, most people, how early do you get up for minyan? Hey, good, minyan, good, let's get up early. But most people, if you see you're enthusiastic about something, that's generally not a good sign. That's generally, I should say it's not a good sign, it's a danger signal. Because when it comes to mitzvahs, there's a Yetzer Hara that's pushing against us. And if you're really excited about, I'll tell you, before you say, there's, you're going to laugh. There was you've heard of Rabbi Akiva Eger? Rabbi Akiva is one of the commentaries in the Gemara. Okay. So Rabbi Akiva Eger once had a guest at his house, and there was a Pesach Seder. And the guest spilled his wine. He spilled the wine. So he felt terrible. You ever spilled when you've been at somebody's house for Shabbos? You ever spilled? You feel bad, right? You feel bad. You spilled the wine. So this guest spilled the wine at Rabbi Akiva Eger's Pesach Seder. So Rabbi Akiva Eger waited a couple of minutes, and he very discreetly shook the table, and his own wine spilled. He purposely spilled his wine by shaking the table. He said to the guests, there's a problem with their table. Don't feel bad. And the guests felt better. The guests felt better because Rabbi Akiva said, well, it's not my fault. Even Rabbi Akiva Eger spilled. Okay, that's a famous story. The Rabbi Akiva Eger demonstrating his sensitivity for, the guy felt bad, so Rabbi Akiva Eger going to spill again. Okay. So when I first got married, we were married for 3 weeks. We'd just come to Israel. We were living right here behind Yeshivat in Mount Dafna. So we were married for 3 weeks. I wasn't even married a month yet. Married for 3 weeks, and we invited up our first guest. I came down to Ohr Somayach. I invited up a guy that I was basically friends with. We were acquaintances. And I invited him up for Shabbos. Our first Friday night meal with a guest. Okay, so we have the first course. Then my wife brings out the chicken. And I remember the guy reaches for the chicken, and as he's bringing it to his plate, on his fork, it slips off his fork and it falls on the floor. A piece of chicken fell on the floor. So the guy, I don't remember what he did. I think he picked it up with his hand and put it back on the serving platter or something. When you're nervous, that's when you strike out. I'm not sure what he did. And it was just very, very, very awkward. And the guy felt bad. And my wife and I didn't care. You know, chickens spend most of their life on the ground anyway. You know, another 30 seconds didn't hurt. And it was just very, very, it was very, very awkward. And and all of a sudden I remembered the Rabbi Akiva Eger story. And I was buzzing with excitement, which is never a good thing. And I'm buzzing with excitement because I realized that I was about to become one of the 36 tzaddikim of the generation. And I knew that in every frum home where they have on the wall a picture of the Chafetz Chaim and the Chazon Ish, there's going to be me. And my only question was if we could find another 35 like me in the generation to bring Mashiach. And here I was so excited. So I took my drink, and I very discreetly, I waited a couple of minutes, and I very kind of put it on the edge of my plate and spilled it. And the effect on the guy was unbelievable because he immediately relaxed, and we had a great meal afterwards, and everything was wonderful, terrific. The guy leaves, and my wife of 3 weeks says to me, listen, Tzadikal, do me a favor. The next time you spill on yourself, okay? Don't spill on me. My wife was drenched. Just absolutely drenched. Okay, listen, I thought it was a partnership. That's what they told me when you get married. So I guarantee you Rebbitzin Eger was dry as a bone. The point is, if you're really excited about doing a mitzvah, it might not be a great thing. So the first thing here, this is phenomenal. Vayashkimu mimocharas, they get up early in the morning. Now watch this. Vayalu olos, they bring burnt offerings. Vayagishu shlomim, they bring peace offerings. Vayeshevam lechol vishaso, then they sit down to eat and drink. Vayakumu litzachek, and then they start, he translated as to revel. And Rashi says on Vayakumu litzachek that it's always an expression of immorality, murder, and idol worship. So immorality and murder, idol worship is right there. Now, watch this. This is remarkable. What is a korban ola, gentlemen? A burnt offering. That's an offering that's brought to the Beis HaMikdash and is completely burnt on the Mizbeach. A shlomim is an offering that part of it is offered in the Beis HaMikdash, part of it is eaten by the owners. The person who brought the sacrifice, he eats, he consumes, the man who brought it, he actually consumes some of it. So a friend of mine, Rabbi Menachem Glick, who's a massive Talmid Chacham, he pointed out, in every movement in the world, every ideology in the world, how does it stand out? How does it start out? It starts out as a completely idealistic movement. Then what happens? As the people in the movement move along, then they start taking a little bit for themselves. And then eventually they take everything for themselves, and there's nothing for the cause, for the good of the cause. And then eventually it leads to even all sorts of debauchery and inappropriate behavior. So if you take a look what happens over here. They get up in the morning, and the first thing is olos, offerings which are completely burnt on the altar, all for God. The next step is shlomim. Oh, some for God and some for me, because we get to eat the shlomim offerings. The next step is vayeshev hamlechol v'leshal. It's all about me, eating and drinking. You downgraded. You started out all for the good of the cause, and slowly but surely, and this happens with every movement in history. All the isms in history. You convinced everybody that it's all for the good of the cause, and slowly but surely you nip away and it becomes selfishness. And eventually it ends with vayakumu litzachek, that they go and they get involved in all sorts of, they get involved in immorality, and they get involved in inappropriate behavior. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe, lech reid, go down. Ki shiches amcha asher alisa meretz Yisrael, your people have gone off. Why is it Moshe's people? I mean, God's people. Why is it Moshe's people? Because he's the one who suggested bringing the potential converts out of Egypt, the Erev Rav, who were the catalysts of this sin. Moshe Rabbeinu, I didn't think it was a good idea. You thought it was a good idea, so I let you do it. Now you're responsible for it. And he says to Moshe Rabbeinu, go down. Okay. we'll leave it over here, gentlemen, and we're going to pick it up tomorrow, Mirza Hashem. We'll finish off the golden calf.